Welcome and thank you for choosing to be here. Today's video is about making this face mask, which is an earlier model I had made. So in today's video, I would actually change and improve this style and make one that has a filter. Please sit back and enjoy the video. I start off by cutting two rectangles measuring 6 inches by 6.5 inches, and then I put one aside and work on one first. So on top there, I'm measuring in 1 inch, and then further down I'm measuring 3 inches down. So that's 1 inch to the right and 3 inches down. Of course, I'm going to use a marker so it could be more visible from your angle. Then at the bottom here, I'm going to go to the right by 1.5 inches, which is what I'm doing there, and then I mark it there. And then from there, I'm going to use a marker and write 1.5 inches. Using the marker, I'm going to draw a line joining the points as you see me do there. Then on the other side of the rectangle, on the opposite side, I'm going to go down 1.5 inches and also from the bottom 1.5 inches. Reason being, going 1.5 inches from the top and the bottom is to give the mask that even look. So it's not uneven on one side or higher on one side. It's to give it that good fit on your face so it can hold your face properly, or rather fit on your face properly. So I'm going to use a marker and join the points. That's the front of the mask to the side of the mask, as you see me doing here, drawing lines to connect all the dots together. After this is done, I'm going to take the other square and put them together so that you can cut them. You'll be able to cut them together. Make sure they are placed together evenly and at the same point. Then I'm going to pin them and then cut them up together so that whatever comes out, or the shape that comes out, will be looking the same on both the papers, or rather on both rectangles. By now you can already have a visual of how the shape of the mask is coming together. After cutting it out, I'm going to remove the pins, after which I'm going to pick up my marker and label the top. Make sure you show which part is the top, because this shape can be a bit confusing. So make sure that you mark to show the top, and maybe other things or other like marks that can remind you of which side is top or right or left. Then from there, since we have to make an opening for the filter, I am now going to go 2 inches to the left of the mask, and then I'm going to draw a straight line. Using this mat, the good thing with this self-healing mat is that it has straight lines, so you can actually use these straight lines to your advantage when you're designing or when you're doing crafts. And then I'm going to label part 1 and part 2 so I know which one is the first part of the filter and the bottom part of the filter. So I'm going to cut this out. Then get a fresh piece of paper and then pin the two together, leaving enough space between them so you can make a good seam allowance, or you can make like a good amount to be able to overlap each other, for those shapes to overlap each other, so that you can be able to seal in the filter properly inside the mask. So I'm going to trace this out as you see me do here, using the marker so you can see better. After I trace out the shapes, I'm going to give about half an inch seam allowance. Then after I get this seam allowance, I'm going to draw a line on both sides. I hope that it is now evident that we are extending the mask, that is the part 1 and the part 2, so that we can be able to create enough space for it to have a seam and to overlap each other. So here I took out the pins so I can remove the parts that I made earlier and reveal the new parts, and I'm going to label them, you know, showing the top, then write. It's good to always mark and say what this is, because if you have, when you start making patterns for things, you tend to mix them up, so it is best to label everything face mask. If you have to put your date there too, it's good that you put your date, indicate what it is. So here I wrote down face mask and a right filter to remind myself that it's the one with the filter. Then I said, you know, cut once, cut each of them once. Then here you see all the pieces together, all the pieces have come together. Then the earlier one that I made before, I also labeled face mask, and then I wrote filter, of course. And this one I'm going to say cut into three pieces, because I will need one to attach with the other one. Anyway, you will understand this as we go on. So I went ahead now and cut this out on fabric. This is the beautiful Ankara print I'm going to use for this face mask. And then of course you can see the first one has the 3. I cut 3 pieces, 1, 2, 3. So there are 3 pieces, and then I have the other one which is only cut once. So I only have 1 piece of each, the part 1 and the part 2. Now the mask is starting to come together. I'm going to place all the pieces together. So this is 2 pieces of the ones I cut out. Remember, you cut 3, so I'm just going to put 2 of them. I'm going to join 2 of them together for now. So you pin, and you're going to sew the ones that you pin. The places that are pinned together are the ones that you are going to sew together. Here you see me pinning that extra seam allowance that we created earlier. You of course fold it to the wrong side so that it can conceal in the raw edge. You do that for both of those 2 pieces, the part 1 and the part 2, so that, you know, when the filter is inside, you won't be able to see any raw edges. And this is how you're going to place them. You're going to place them together, overlap them, make sure there's enough space overlapping them so that, you know, the filter doesn't come out or keep, you know, coming out of the mask. Then you're going to pin them together securely, and then off to the sewing machine, or you know, you can sew by hand if you prefer, and sew them together securely. Always make sure that you pin things together properly, because if there's any unevenness, then the end product will look uneven, and where things are supposed to match, they will not match. So make sure everything is done with all accuracy, as accurate as you can possibly be. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine now and sew down, as you can see, directed by my finger. Sew all this down, and then I will show you what it looks like after. Okay, so I finally sewed it down and pressed the seam opens. The secret with pressing your seams open, actually, after every sewing, is so that it can give you that flat look and there's no bulginess, and then it also makes everything lie better and more comfortably for you and for your client. So make sure you always press open your seams as flat as you can. So it is now time to start bringing the whole face mask together. So I'm going to put the right sides together. With the right sides together, make sure that you put the seams, that the seams match as they should. Like I told you earlier, everything has to be very precise if you want your end product to look good. So make sure you line them exactly, you know, where they should be. Everything is in its right place. Nothing is up or above, or nothing is uneven, you know, above the other, or you know, anything of the sort. So pin everything together. Then you will take the other piece, that's the part one of the, you know, the filter. Then since this is the wrong side, make sure your seam is facing up, because if it's not facing up, it's going to show on the other side. So make sure you overlap them, that every you know, raw side is facing up. So as you do this, make sure to always, you know, check everything out before you go and sew it permanently. So you have a look to yourself and see if everything is in place, and then you pin everything in place and precisely, and then you're ready for sewing. So I'm now going to sew and then, you know, bring it to you and show you how the outcome looked like after sewing. Here I'm indicating to you where you're going to sew. Of course, you're going to use a 0.5 inches seam allowance. So this is after I have sewed down and clipped the edges. The reason why you clip the seam allowance part is because it's curved, and you also don't want too much bulk on your final product. So you clip some of the fabric out to create, you know, to remove the bulkiness of the seam. So I'm now turning it inside out like this and trying to put everything in order, you know, straightening the lines and the bulks, making sure that the seam has laid down. Here you can already see where you're going to put your filter, so the place is open and nice, and since the seams are both concealed on the inside, it's not untidy. So it's flat and nice and overlapped to give you enough space to hold your filter in place. So make sure everything is well laid, and then you go and iron it. You go and iron it flat. But before we do that, we are going to fold these edges inside so that you can put your raw edges on the inside. So fold in about maybe half an inch again. Fold it inwards and make sure everything is nice and flat and even. Then you're going to go and iron it out. So after you do that and make sure everything is even, you're going to do this for both sides. Fold it in about half an inch. So do this with utmost accuracy as best as you can. Then of course you have the help of an iron, so you go and iron it down. Make sure everything is in order and in place. Finally, you are now going to make top stitching all round. Top stitching helps everything just stay in place. Then you are going to get elastics. Use the ones that you prefer. I prefer this type because they're really strong, and also they are long lasting. Then I'm going to measure about 6 inches long. You can use any measurement that you feel comfortable with. For me and my personal preference, 6 inches is about enough. But if you're making for a younger person or somebody that is, that has a smaller face, then you can reduce the measurement. So it will be according to your own personal preference or who you're making the mask for. But I personally use 6 inches. Moving on, you're going to place the bands, the rubber bands, or rather the elastic. Then you're going to make sure that you go in at least 1/2 inch on each side so that it is comfortably in place. So you're going to place it and then pin everything down. Then you will sew both sides on the right. Sew as many stitches as you can just to make sure that it's secure, because you will be drawing on this elastic almost every time. So make sure it's comfortably fitting and it's securely sewed on so it doesn't come out or pull out. So this is the final look of the mask. You have your filter there and everything seems okay. Thank you for watching, and I'm glad that you were able to join me today. See you on the next one.